Welcome to episode 6 in the Consciousness Awareness series. My name is Candace Sanderson, and I'm glad that you joined us today. In the last episode, I talked about life lessons that came on the scene unexpectedly when Hurricane Ian made landfall where I live in Southwest Florida. Just yesterday, I returned home after 42 long nights without sleeping in my own bed. I am forever grateful to my daughter for taking me into her home for so long. Thank you, Cassie. I started this series after receiving several requests and questions on how to live a more spiritual life. As we go through our days, we are presented with choices. Some of those choices seem more like challenges, or at least they do in my life. And it's in those moments where we make decisions that can actually be the most meaningful and consequential of our lives. I make an outline, a Cliff Notes version of what I want to cover in these episodes. And as I scripted this episode, my messengers offered a vision of me trying to go somewhere in the dark. When these visions occur, I know to pay attention. This means that the messengers wish to get some sort of a point across. And that's always more meaningful than just me at the helm. The vision was reminiscent of something that happened to me while I was at my daughter's house during Hurricane Ian. We had no electricity for 5 days, and I had how should I say this? Quite the stumble when I tried to move throughout the house without any lights. Here's the vision. You're so hungry and you need to find your way to the kitchen so you can reach the pantry where you know there are plenty of late night snackaroos there. But the electricity is off. It's late at night. How do you get there? You know the basic floor plan to get to the kitchen from any place in your house. After all, it's your home. Doesn't matter whether you own it or rent it, you're living there. It's yours for the time being. Now, at this point, I received an aside remark. And your house and the fact that you temporarily live there is like your body. You temporarily inhabit this home. I thought, what a great analogy for life. This is your body where your true spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it, where that temporarily resides. But let's get on with the vision. We can save this nugget of knowing for another time. When you've reached the pantry, you know that the cookies are in the back on the right, and the chips are straight ahead. And that dark chocolate that you're hiding from yourself is tucked away behind the jars of peanut butter. Having knowledge of the landscape helps you navigate in the dark, especially when you arrive at your goal. I realized the messengers were sharing a great example of spiritual guidance. Once you've opened to travel a spiritual path, you've laid the groundwork. It's the blueprint. It's right in front of you. So now you can use it. And how do you do that? First, take a deep breath and be silent. It doesn't have to be for a long time. It can be just long enough, just a few seconds even, to put a space between your action and your reaction. Now, instead of reacting, you can let your actions become purposeful. First of all, we cannot, well, you could, but you don't want to charge through the house to find the pantry in the dead of night when there's no electricity. It would be like a bull in a china shop. It would be disastrous. It would be chaotic. Instead, we can pause and we can visualize, use our mind's eye to tell us where we are. Even with darkness surrounding us, we still know where the walls are. We cannot use sight since it's dark, but we can use our other senses to help. We can run our hands along the wall until we reach that light switch. or that picture frame. But we know, whatever it is, that we're getting close to the next room. We also could shuffle our feet as we inch our way toward the kitchen. The sound of our feet sliding on the wood floor or the tile floor changes when we hit something, a rug, the carpet of the next room. Maybe it's the door's threshold that our foot touches first, and it warns us that we're ready to exit one room and enter another. But what else could we do? What other senses could we use? Think of this. Be creative. We could sing or talk loudly. And if we turned around while we did this, and if we really paid close attention to what we heard, could we tell when we're entering a closet versus an open room? I think so. Could we tell the difference as we entered, for example, a carpeted area filled with couches and chairs versus that cold, tiled bathroom? I bet you could. If we had light, whether it's from the sun, a full moon, or from electricity, all we'd have to do is walk that path that we know so well to get to the pantry. But when we do not have the benefit of light, the benefit of sight, our other senses will assist us if we pay attention. We let the senses of touch and sound guide us. Maybe we can even use smell. If we use these senses to, air quote, see for us, then we're using them in ways that we had not before. It's so awkward at first, it's clumsy, but it works. And it's something that I guarantee, if you practice, you will improve. After getting this vision from the messengers, I had a better understanding of where they wanted this episode to go. There's a multifold purpose. It's choosing to learn from everyday experiences is one of those purposes. We do not have to go to a monastery or to a cave to access wisdom. We don't have to hike the Himalayas or even go to the red rocks of Sedona. Those trips can have magical results, but we can also access wisdom in our day-to-day lives. For those who have followed me, you may recall that I've often talked about the importance of the silent guru. This is the person who might sit next to you during the movies. It might be the stranger that passes you on the street and your eyes meet and they smile. It's us. We are the silent gurus, everyday people living everyday lives. We are often the linchpins for change. The subtitle in my first book, The Reluctant Messenger, is An Ordinary Person's Extraordinary Journey into the Unknown. There's nothing special about me, yet I began receiving messages of wisdom from the non-physical dimensions, and that most definitely changed me. My point is, we, as ordinary persons, often see ourselves as inconsequential. Who? Little old me? What can I do? I'm not important. Several years ago, the messenger showed me an image of an enormous machine, the size of a city, even larger. Then they showed me a series of bolts and tiny screws flying away from the machine. This beautiful machine that had once run magically, smoothly, efficiently, started to chug and spew and stop. I thought about this image and I realized the lesson. I might be going through life as a tiny nut or a bolt, but being small does not equate to being insignificant. Think of that. Just being small does not mean that we are not important or significant. It's okay to live our day-to-day lives, being mindful of what part we play in this machine called consciousness. Just as traversing our homes in the dark will improve as we open to using our senses differently, we can use the tools of consciousness to help us traverse the challenges of the day, of everyday life. The messengers gave me so many tools. I described them in the book, but often I didn't see them as tools until Donna Rebido and I recorded the last two episodes in our YouTube channel, The Reluctant Messenger Unleashed. I also described them in season 1 of the Reluctant Messenger podcast. Let's talk about accessing some of those tools. I want to thank Marcel, someone who has read my books, and he's contacted me. We email back and forth. He came up with an acronym of TEA, to the messenger's formula of thought, energy, action. Everything is based on this formula, T. So let's review it. As you think something, it creates, that's your T, your thought, it creates energy, E, and it's the energy that fuels the A, the action. It fuels the thought into action. This is the premise behind the law of attraction. As we think positive thoughts, we fuel, that's the energy part, the thoughts, and that fuel leads us toward a positive outcome, the action. That's the manifestation of the thought. That formula, T, thoughts, energy, action, is the foundation of what the messengers call the emotional guidance system, because it's our quality control for the manifestation, for the action, for the A in T. Our outcomes depend on how we fuel our thoughts. The type of fuel at the bottom of our tanks sets up the types of thoughts that we might have. So the energy, the E and T, actually helps establish the thought. But I don't want to confuse things. It's actually just the fumes that do that. But when we see the energy, the fuel, as the second part of the formula, then we understand the connection. We realize that we have choices to make that will determine the outcome. If we choose lower vibrations of envy, anger, depression, hate, well, that's what's in the bottom of our tanks, the fumes in our reserve. And they are there for the next thought that arises. But if we choose positive actions of love, of gratitude, of kindness, compassion, humor, then we'll find those fumes ready to fuel the next thought. The important thing here is awareness. Being aware that the quality control of our actions is based on a choice. That's important. It's based on our choice. Once we understand the importance of this foundational belief, we can begin to use it in our daily lives. How? In previous episodes, we talked about some of the tools we can use, for example, for protection. We have that reball, building that resonant energy balloon. And then I added what I use, which is opening that 8th chakra as an added layer to that reball, that bubble of energy. As we pierce that 8th chakra above our heads and pull the energy of that soul chakra around our body, we're connecting to the non-physical realms. But we can also use that energy of the heart. And we do this by the tools we've previously talked about, by using the energy of breathing in through the heart as we smile. Let's look at that. Smiling raises our vibration. And as we do that, the quality control of our emotional guidance system changes. We're bumping our frequencies higher by engaging the frequencies with love, of compassion, of light. So as you can see, we've already engaged some of the tools to help us in our daily lives. Here's one thing I suggest. I love starting the day with some sort of ritual of protection. For me, I love to just surround myself with this bubble of light. You can use a breathing technique, breathing through your heart as you smile, or you can find another tool that works better for you or resonates with you better. This series is all about discovering your tools. In the past, the messenger showed me a cage of light, and sometimes that's what I use. This was a tool that automatically presented itself to me when there was negative energy from someone who was I don't know, attempting to invade my space. I saw this mesh, this neon colored threads of light that covered my body like a web or a matrix. This cage of light sealed off any areas of my physical body by way of the energy body that was vulnerable. It added a layer of protection to that already present bubble of light, the reball, the one that I built. But once the messenger showed me this, it became an additional tool for my consciousness awareness toolbox. You can use this too. Just imagine it or think about it, and it happens. That's T in action. But this series, again, is about empowering you. It's your path to find. When you can carve out a few moments of quiet time, sit in silence, and ask your guides for tools that will work for you, then wait. See what happens. Don't judge. Be patient. Just see what occurs. What comes to my mind, thanks to the messengers, is that there's someone out there thinking, I'm not feeling anything. I am just feeling nothing. That's okay. What I see is as they relax into that thought, something else materializes. Perhaps what you perceive of as nothing is exactly what you were looking for. What is nothing? Does it manifest, for example, as a bank of thick clouds or fog that surrounds you? Is it perhaps a barrier that keeps any kind of negative emotion or low-lying energy from invading your space? You may not see this as a cage of energy like I did, but perhaps as a gentle blanket, as thick clouds of protections that surround you, that insulate you from any negative energy. Why do we need to discover consciousness exploration tools? Why is that so important? Once we find them, we realize we have stepped outside of the physical body into the energy body. Perhaps we've used our observer to cross into another dimensional space where our energy body resides. Perhaps we've learned to move from the observer to a higher aspect of ourselves, our higher self. Perhaps we're, I don't know, communicating with a guide or an angel. But stepping into the non-physical means we are no longer limited to our 5 physical senses. And now the messengers are bringing me full circle back to that initial vision of feeling your way in the dark, searching for something positive, something to eat. But now I have a different perspective. In this scene, we know the electricity is off. What's another way to say that? The power is off. The energy is off. This series is all about finding the right energy, the right frequencies to empower you, to help you use your senses differently, to feel your way in the dark. And as I tell you this, I have this beautiful picture of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. She just flashed into my awareness. And remember the story, she had the power all along. That's what Glinda the Good Witch told her. So keep your thoughts positive and you will go where you wish to go. Then tap those ruby red slippers and realize there's no place like home. There's no place like home. and then embrace these newly found tools. I want to thank you for joining me today. Next time, we'll look at more of the tools from the Reluctant Messenger. There are so many. We have the crystalline grid, prayer, intention. We have the ladder of enlightenment for a way to quickly ascend into the non physical. Soon, we'll look into that dashboard that, whether you know it or not, you're developing. And we will talk about building that personal dashboard just for you. Until then, remember to protect your space and bring in the higher energies of compassion and kindness. It's a choice. And by choosing kind words, you will go so far in keeping those higher vibrational frequencies around you. And that will make your daily lives run much smoother. Believe me, I know. Until next time, thank you for sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Goodbye.